We'll just kick it off. Welcome to the 5th annual Misty Turkey Day virtual meetup. We are here with Zach Thompson from season 11 and 12, Bonehead number 2. I didn't know your name was Ricky. I guess I may have missed that.
No, you didn't miss it in this series. That was a live tour. The bits we filmed for the live tour, it was Terry was Bonehead number 1, Ricky was Bonehead number 2. So.
See, now we know that very good fact. So welcome to everybody who's tuning in. I'll kick it off with questions. How did you get involved with MST3K?
Yes. Well, long story short, if you'll pardon the pun, if you guys are familiar with Tim Ryder, who is now fully entrenched in writing with the show and writing the pieces that we've seen this weekend, he's Bonehead number 1, and Tim is 6. I don't know. To me, he's 7 feet tall, but 6 something, and a slender man. And this is more their story to tell than anybody's. But they met Joel at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in Chicago. He was doing a meet and greet, and they went, and they waited in line to meet him, and he goes, "Hey, I saw you guys all at Second City last night." And everyone in the cast at the time were friends of mine, but Tim Ryder and Rebecca Hansen, his wife, were both in the cast, and they kept in touch. Rebecca helped Joel with some things when he would come to Chicago for Comic-Cons, and then when it looked like the show was starting up again, he goes, "I think I have a role for you, Rebecca, and I might have a role for Tim too." And then when it became kind of more of a real thing, he was like, "Hey Tim, I kind of see your role as 2 people. Do you happen to know anybody who is like physically your opposite?" So luckily I am well under average size, height rather, and quite pudgy. So,
well, speaking of Tim, he has joined us. I can't see his video. He's somewhere. Oh, everybody. Wow. Well, I guess. Zach was just telling us, I had asked how he got involved with MST3K, and he mentioned that, because of you two, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Please, Zach, keep telling the story. This is your Q&A.
Zach,
We're just watching.
We just missed you, so we wanted to see you.
No.
This is your time. Please continue.
We're not here.
Tim Ryder's birthday party. But yes, it's all because it is by their grace that I'm here. And again, lucky to be the shortest working comedian.
That's awesome. So, and you're in the Chicago area.
Yep. How
did the film, did you like rent an apartment in LA during the filming of the seasons? Or did Tim and Rebecca let you stay with them?
This is actually prior to them moving. And again, I don't want to steal too much thunder since you guys have 2 hours to kill is what Dina was telling me earlier.
Well, we've got some time.
I'm kidding.
But, so how did that work?
Well, Alterniversal put us up in a place called I forgot the name of the hotel.
The Garland.
The Garland.
Thank you. The Garland Hotel. That was very close to the studio. Very odd story for my regular guy job. I was flying from Moscow to Los Angeles, and gave myself a day to just sleep in the hotel room, and then we started. It was supposed to be. I'm trying to think. It was supposed to be like the Thursday, Friday of that week, if I'm not wrong. And then it got pushed to Friday, Monday. So I had like a free weekend in LA. I felt super guilty because I was already gone, I think 10 days in Russia away from my wife and kids. And I'm like, sorry, hon, it got pushed. So I have a free weekend in LA to drive around and, visit friends in LA. But yeah, Alterniversal put us up in hotels. The short answer to that question.
Very cool. Now, I always wondered about that, and like you mentioned, Tim and Rebecca have now moved to LA, and we'll talk to them more about that later. I just happened to notice your wrestling poster back there, and we have a big fan of wrestling. His name is Rob. He is from Parts Unknown, and he said if you could go back in time to any point and witness one pro wrestling match live, what would it be?
Oh, man. Rob, that's an awesome question. And honestly, I think it would be to watch Bobby Heenan in AWA, work like the Chicago Amphitheater, because he's one of my all-time favorites. Again, he was a wrestler that turned into a manager, but a very, very funny person. My favorite commentator of all time, my favorite manager of all time. And just to watch him work a crowd live, I think would be really magic to me. Plus he worked with really great talents in the 70s and stuff in Chicago. So I was too young for it then anyway. I mean, this is just for Rob, but I was kind of like, the first wrestling memory I have is Uncle Elmer's wedding on Saturday night's main event. So, because I was trying to tune in to watch Saturday Night Live. So yeah, it's that kind of thing that I was, that got me kind of hooked in. But of course my reach back, Heenan was big at that time and remains big in my brain. So.
What is it about wrestling that entertains you so much, Tim, Zach?
Well, I'll defer to Tim on that one. No,
sorry.
No. I honestly like the spectacle of it all. I mean, like, it's so funny that you should say that, because I had this free weekend in LA and I decided, I think that the night that I couldn't sleep, I went to an all women's wrestling show in downtown LA at the Mayan Theater. It was just this beautiful theater, a whole women's wrestling card. And the next day, like, Rebecca texted me and said, hey, Joel's having drinks down at the bar, come on down. And so I got to talking to Joel, who I'd almost never met at this point. I mean, I met him briefly, but this was like our first, like, beyond hi, how are you? I mean, beyond just Tim vouching for me, really. And he's, so it's like, what did you do? What he wanted to ask about Russia. And then we got talking about wrestling. And it's like, what happened prior to the pandemic was like, you can go to a wrestling show, you can go anywhere in the world and there'd be a wrestling show that weekend. And that was kind of the boom that I was seeing. And so seeing like this live stunt show and I mean, if you go to a live one, you can't really hear the commentators make jokes, which is honestly something that augments it so much for me. But, there are funny wrestlers that work the crowd and also have to do these amazingly athletic things and not kill themselves or someone else. So to me, it's just fascinating. And the spectacle, the whole thing is something that I really enjoy.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody refer to wrestling as a live stunt show before, but that is pretty accurate, isn't it?
And I'm sure someone on this meeting knows her name, but during the filming of season 12, some of the Revival League people that were there, one of them was a female stunt woman.
Terry!
Thank you. I couldn't remember her name, but I just wanted to sit and talk to her for the whole day to be like, tell me all these stories about, like, being a stunt woman. I mean, just amazing.
You should send her a message. I bet she would love to tell you stories. In fact, because she's from, Terry and I are both from Oklahoma, and yeah, yes. She would do the at our little amusement park, Frontier City, and they would have live stunt shows with the gun shooters and the slingers and stuff. So it's so funny that you mentioned that. Shoot her a message. She'd probably tell you all kinds of stories.
I would love to hear. I mean, it's fascinating to me to be able to entertain with your whole person. I mean, I consider myself to be a physical comedian, but I mean, it's a whole different level when you can, I don't know, make it look like you are hurting yourself and, hopefully not, and yet, entertain crowds as well. So I don't know, there's many layers to it. Steve and Matthew and I briefly were talking before this started that there's a Doctor Who convention also. My other fandom is wrestling. So it's wrestling and comedy and very specifically MST3K. So I don't know, not to bring this all the way back around, but honestly, like getting the email from Tim and Rebecca was really just blindsiding because it was one of those shows, like I graduated from high school in 93 and college in 97. So it was right. I mean, I was trading tapes and, enjoying the show. And my wife and I, when we were just watching home movies the other night, but we would like wait for my daughter's first feeding. So we'd watch Mystery Science until the first feeding and then we'd all go to bed. And, sometimes I'd stay up later than I should, trying to finish the episode or whatever. But, to get this email out of the blue, be like, hey, how would you like to, I don't know, appear on one of your favorite shows of all time, if not the favorite, it was like getting hit by comedy lightning. I mean, it's just the fortune of all fortunes. So I'm the luckiest person you're likely to meet.
That is amazing. Go ahead.
Just jump on that for a little bit. One of the reasons, Zach, even had Joel not asked specifically for like an opposite physical build to Tim Ryder, if he would have wanted something similar, I still would have been like, Zach Thompson looks like Tim and they could double, because Zach is honestly one of my favorite performers that I've ever watched and worked with, and like we came up through the Chicago comedy scene kind of together. He was ahead of me in a lot of ways. But when I started at Comedy Sports, Zach was there, and like watching Zach work a stage, and he really taught me like how to do Comedy Sports and short form improv specifically really well. And he uses his whole body. And then he's also super smart on top of that. So he's just this like WrestleMania comedy Hulk the Hogan like ass kicker. So and he's one of the best dudes you'll ever meet anyway. So like it was a no-brainer when Joel had asked if there were people we'd want to work with or we'd want to bring on. It was like, yeah, Zach Thompson for sure. And I didn't realize what a big fan of the show you were at that point.
Exactly. You had no way of knowing. It's something that never came up because it was.
Yeah. But I was like, if I can work with Zach in any capacity, yes. Yeah. So.
Zach will also ask you very nicely and then body slam you.
Yeah, he will.
Yes.
Is that a costume change, Zach? You taking the dickie off?
I had to take my dickie off because Rebecca's making me all, to give me the
I wondered what was happening with that red. I thought you had a bib.
It's a little bit more apropos, but this is my Holly Dickie.
Oh.
If we're past Thanksgiving, it's time to really hit the gas.
Step it up.
Beautiful.
So sorry, I just had to say that.
No, thank you. Again, this is what I'm glad you guys were able to join in too. Let's see. Does anyone who's here have a question for Zach? Oh, Chris, why don't you go first?
Hi, Zach. Obviously, the new season or the last two seasons on Netflix, most elaborate opening for MST3K ever. How long did that actually take to shoot?
That was day one. Rebecca and Tim can keep me, but that was like our first shot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or among the first shots.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it was basically you call everybody there. I take that back. It was the biggest shot for people that needed to be on camera. And I think the Revival League wedding guests one was the second. That was Monday, I think. So there were 2 big days where it's like all the band, all the Bonehead band, and then we're rolling that ziggurat thing, Tim and I. You two are going to roll this thing. And I was like, okay. I mean, whatever. We can move it, but I was like, I can't see. I've got like, it's like tunnel vision. And then they're like, and then you got to wheel around and go la 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 at the camera. And oh man. But yeah, that was a very much like, hey, this, I don't know. I'm a very in the moment guy, and there's really it wasn't really real to me until they're like, okay, we're gonna play the theme over, and you guys have to like, and the minute it hit me, it was like, yeah, right. It was just so jarring and so like, oh shit, this is a real thing right now. But honestly, I want to say, and Tim, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we had to take like each, like we brought it in the one way, we moved it, and then there was the tight shot on Felicia. So there's probably 2 or 3 takes to every aspect of that, but up to and including like we drag we dragged Jonah into the tube and slammed the door, and then they wanted Tim's hand on the switch and like all that stuff. Everybody had to wait around for us for, but really the kind of the focus of that day was moving the ziggurat and getting the band in the background, because you have that massive amount of people, so to speak. I mean, it paled in comparison to the massive amount for the wedding scenes, but all that kind of happened at one time. So it was pretty it was pretty crazy.
I remember very specifically at one point Joel came up to you and I, Zach, and was like, hey, can you guys do the la la la's at this part? Like, can you just turn around and like, do you know the song? Like, do you know when those come in?
Yeah,
and we're like, yeah, we're familiar with it. I think we can handle that. Trying to be professional, but also trying not to freak out. Like, yeah, we can do that. Which also works very well with our motorcycle helmets. Like, you can't see our mouths, but you know that we're doing it.
Yeah, it's not like we're doing that big pearl take, like right in the rear view of the van or whatever. So
yeah. And the other thing that I remember from that, Zach, was as we started pushing the ziggurat around, Felicia is up there standing, and it's mostly stable, but I don't think she's got maybe like a guardrail or something. Like, there's not a lot for her to hang on to.
She was very pregnant during that shoot. And
she came down and talked to us, and like,
she was just telling people at this point.
She had barely told anyone. Yeah. She was like, hey, it's very important that I not fall. So you two, like, I'm trusting you two to push me smoothly and not jar me. And we were like, you got it, Felicia. You are in good hands.
That's awesome. Hey, Matthew, you raised your hand. What would you like to talk to?
I just wanted to ask Zach. I know that you have a writing credit on the show as well. Now, is that the riffs or is that the sketches? And also, what's the process for either one of those?
So I'm assuming you've heard some of the people talk to this, and it's pretty much the same answer for everybody. But again, this lightning bolt that happened for me was I get dragged into. I got copied on an email to where I think I even texted Tim and Rebecca. I was like, "Is this real?" But it was either Elliot or Joel saying, "Hey, in the spirit of the show, we're gonna let you guys just try and write on it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, here I thought I was just gonna fill a suit, and I literally thought we'd be dressed up as Brain Guy or miniature Brain Guy, kind of like in the wedding scene. And then all this is like happening so quickly over the course of everything, and there's a program they use that the name of it escapes me. Tim uses it all the time, so he's probably familiar with it. But
Collaborate
with a K.
Thank you. Yes. So basically, it runs the video, and then if you start typing a joke idea, it pauses and lets you put your little joke in, and then you can go back and review. I had a lot of problems with Collaborate to where I was like copying all my jokes into a text file because stuff would go missing or whatever. But I mean, you want to talk about a dream come true? I did have. Cheryl Volpe told me too that I was like, Elliot Kalin, the head writer, was like, "You're in the bulk joke writing business. Just vomit out as much as you can, and we'll sift through it and figure out." And Cheryl said like, the ones I wrote for, I really like pushed the bounds of how many I could cram in. But I was just trying to take it in the spirit and be like, "Hey, whatever. I'm just gonna pop jokes in and see if something shows up, or see if it sticks." And the one or two times where you hear something you're pretty sure you wrote. You get the red flash in your face, but then at the same time, you're like, well, how hard would that have been for anybody to really make the same logical leap that I did? Because you don't know. I mean, Tim's in a different stage of it at now, and probably then also, but having only written for Loves of Hercules and Younger Eve for me, it was one of those things where it's like, I'm one of, I want to say a dozen writers or more on that. Those two, and you just kind of wonder like if the think fast nerd when the guy gets nailed with a rock is somebody already came up with. So
awesome. Brian would like to know. He says that you see a U of a degree behind you. What degree do you have?
I see a U of I degree. What?
Okay, my bad.
Degree?
That's my wife's PhD.
Oh.
Okay.
I mean, so I that's that. I mean, there's more we can do. We can do a whole tour.
How many degrees does Kiki have? Zach?
2. She has a master's and a PhD. So.
Okay.
Did she go to? Is that U of I CU or is that Chicago?
Yeah, the Circle campus is Chicago. She got her. She went to Penn State undergrad and then University of Chicago for her master's and then UIUC for her PhD. So that's my bragging on my wife's CV for you. Academics out there.
Does anybody else who's on the chat have a question for Zach? Before I refer, Matthew has another one. Go for it.
Maybe this isn't a fair question to ask, but you were talking about the title sequence. I just wondered if you are aware of this, if you could help me out, because it's giving me sleepless nights. During the title sequence, and when Jonah gets the distress signal, in the corner of his screen, one of his screens, we see a different set of numbers every episode. People were saying, well, don't worry, this is a code. It's like something out of Futurama. It's going to pay off. We're all going to know what it means eventually. And I don't know what it means. Do you know what it means?
Matthew, you and I are in the same boat on that one, but I will say that I heard, and I think Jonah's talked about this in other places, so I don't think I'm giving up any ghosts, but Joel said to him, either in front of me or he said to Jonah said in an interview, my brain's a little spotty from sleepless nights with my 2 kids, but something like, I did it for about 100 and then Mike did it for about 100. So we think maybe you'll do it for about 100 episodes and then we'll find somebody else. So Joel is always playing the very long game in his head. If that's going to pay off, it might, I hope it will still, but yeah. I'm willing to bet only he knows exactly what that is.
Yeah, there's another 70 episodes or so for it to pay off.
And I meant to ask that Joel yesterday when we had him on, and of course, right, once after he left, I was like, oh, that's the one thing. Well, there may be what Gypsy brings in, but we'll save that for Rebecca's Q&A. And those are some burning questions that fans have had over the new seasons. Is what's the code in the intro, and then what is Gypsy bringing and taking away when she comes into the theater? So I'm glad to know that no one really knows except for, I guess, Joel.
Well, that is to say, I don't know.
Okay.
Again, where Tim and Rebecca's influence and involvement have gone up, mine has kind of gone down. So I'm not in the inner circle by any stretch. They'd probably have better answers.
Too.
I've heard a rumor, and I think, yes, Phantom, you are on point, that it's allegedly the number of references to the original series contained within that episode.
Okay, I think I did hear that.
Whether or not that's true or accurate, I'll leave to the internet sleuths to puzzle out, but that's what I've heard.
And is that something that Joel really knows, or someone else has kept track of him for him?
It was probably someone else.
It's probably someone else keeping track of it, because I have quoted old episodes back to Joel, and he has no idea what I'm saying.
We've all done that, Rebecca.
Yeah.
That man said how many thousands of riffs in his
Repeatedly,
lifetime.
yeah. And I was like, Joel, that was a pretty great delivery of you too that I just did. He's like, no, Rebecca, So, yeah.
He's an amazing guy.
But boy, I loved when that came out and people were just breaking their brains trying to crack that code. It was
a whole Facebook group dedicated to trying to figure that out. And I don't know if they ever did. I'll have to go check on them. See, they're still in there with their pins.
It's still it's an alternate reality game that they are still really deep into.
So Zach, what was the best part of making the return?
I mean, I was like a kid in a candy shop the entire time. The thing that blows my mind about, and again, like watching through the Turkey Day Marathon, it's kind of always been a running theme with it, even on the low budget days, like how well lit the sets are, because they want to draw attention to how much work they put into it. And a lot of the stills and the Satellite of Love and Moon 13 shots look like they're background. But they're not. They're live in front of a big, beautiful set that somebody spent a long time on. And just being able to walk in and among those big, moving pieces to me, and the containment unit that Tim and I get to interact with all the time, it's just fascinating stuff. Watching it come together and watch it be built, watch it be designed, even the thought that goes into the live show props. During the last live tour, I got to sit down and have a drink with Seth Robinson, who designed a lot of the stuff for the live tour that Rebecca and Tim were on last, and talking to the stuff, the thought that goes into it and the design that goes into it is always something I'm so fascinated by. I mean, it harkens back to me with like hearing about the Star Wars universe and how they want it to look lived in and everything like that. It seems like everything's purpose built, and I don't want to say without frills, but I'm sure that, like the monitor, the bubbulator that you turn around, the back had something else on it. Everything was purpose built for something. And, again, just being live on that. And I have to say the second part, honestly, was like having a beer at the hotel bar afterwards and just kind of sitting there and talking to everybody. I mean, after that Monday, I think Rebecca, Tim, and I met at the bar, and it was just like, trying to decompress and process, and then everybody shows up, and it's just one of those things where you just kind of get to sit there and gawk at your heroes without really saying too much, just quietly drinking yourself into oblivion because you can't believe it.
I can certainly understand that. Steve's over here. He asked in the chat, did you get to snag any of the props?
No, you know what? Everything is like, I don't want to say serial numbered, but you weren't allowed to take pictures of the props for one, you were allowed to take pictures, but you couldn't post anything. I think Jonah got in trouble for posting like first day of shooting or something like that. You couldn't even really tell he was doing anything, but they had to have him take it down. I mean, I have just beautiful pictures of the stuff. There was a whole garage that was just props, and those of you who've been to the set can attest to that. Just like there's the moon and the logo, and there's like the steampunk crow, and just like your head, it's like you're in a museum, but they're like, oh, don't move any of that stuff because we're going to grab it for a shot right now. So I mean, I don't think I manipulated anything except for when I was messing around with Backstage the Live tour when you guys let me backstage. But it's not like I try to touch anything or move anything, because it's all like, somebody put that there for a reason, and they're gonna come back for it right now. So you better not mess with it.
And how much do you love Joel's latest prop garage, where he's making all these things for the stage show, and he gives all those behind the scenes, all of this stuff coming out of that man's head. I just love the idea of the prop comic that he was now being this very mature prop manager.
Prop comic, right? Yeah, that's crazy. And even the little videos they put together, like, here's our storyboards. I'm just like, I'm gonna watch it 6 times and see what I missed. The first. It's like watching the show. I got to go back and see that. Understand the riffs I missed. But yeah, his mind works in a way that's so much different than everybody else's. And yeah, again, being a funded prop comic and be able to bring these things to life because you feel like it is just crazy. But if I could circle back real quick, Steve. I did make off with an original patch from our jumpsuits,
Nice.
The bonehead patch, the purple one, with permission from the wardrobe person. She actually went to the producer and asked, and they're like, "Yeah, sure, we're not gonna use," because they had bonehead suits for the band and for us and for everybody. So I do have an original patch that I've attached to a jacket.
Awesome. That is awesome. If I could brag a little bit, I got to visit season 12, filming, and got to meet you guys, of course. And they actually did let us take the suppositories that were. I have them. They're in a thing over here. As you guys know, they were just.
The lollipop.
The salt lollipop. Yes. So they let us take a couple of those. I have them in a bag. And actually, I have 4 of them, and I've thought about maybe putting a couple of them up for raffle, for the charity raffle. I don't know.
Raffle suppositories is the worst idea you've ever had, Captain.
Oh, come on.
I guess it depends on the story, right? If it's Ethan Frome, I don't think it's going to go for very much. Although that one was stage used or whatever, screen used. So
yeah. Does anybody have a question? Who's here? Because I've got some. No. All right, that's cool. Let's see.
Matthew has one.
I think Chris and Matt.
Oh yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Chris, what have you got?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chris, go ahead.
Oh, okay, thanks. The obligatory question, since you are a Misty, favorite old episode, favorite new episode?
My favorite new episode, actually my favorite episode of all time, hands down, is, and I can't think of the name because that makes sense. Oh my God. Reptilicus, I'm sorry.
Oh, Reptilicus.
And because it was the first one, and because it was my first time seeing any Mystery Science Theater in with a crowd, and it was just electric.
Yeah.
And so for that, it will always hold a special place in my heart.
Was that in Chicago? Was that the premiere?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So
I was there.
Again, one of those things where it's like, wow, this is real, and I haven't been able to tell anybody till right now, and it's blowing my mind. So for me, that'll always be a favorite. In terms of an old episode, I mean, I really have a hard time picking, and it seems like every time I watch something, I pick up something I missed, and I'm like, it kind of changes the rankings. Geez, I don't know. I mean,
Do a top 5 then.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm going to mess up the movie titles if I try and do a top.
That's okay.
Here, you guys will be able to tell me what this one is from, and because I've been like trying to go back and look for it, but it was some big rubbery monster movie, and these guys are stranded on an island that turns out to be like where the monster lab is. And they find a bunch of fruit, and so they're eating all this fruit because they're starving, and the one guy goes to the other, man, I feel like a gorilla. And the riff is, me too, where can we get one? I use that every single day, but I still don't know what it's from. I still can't remember the movie it's from.
Godzilla and the Sea Monster, maybe?
One more time?
Godzilla and the Sea Monster? I'm just guessing. I think.
I bet you're right, but it's anytime somebody says to me, I feel like a blank, I say me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right, because I think that's the one where they were like juicing the fruit to like keep the monster from eating them. And they eventually replaced it with like fake juice or something.
That old trope.
Yeah, that old trope.
Well, it is now. That could have been one of the earliest times they did it.
Yeah.
Possible. Yeah.
Matthew, do you have another question?
Since then.
Matthew, did you have another question for Zach?
You know what? That was literally going to be my question, but here's another one. Your introduction to MST, when you first saw it and thought, well, this is something.
You know, I think I was home from college and my dad was watching it, and that was one of the other bittersweet things. My dad passed away right before the show came out, and he knew that I like got it, but he didn't know. I don't think he even knew that I went to film it. Or you know, he passed away before we went to film it, so that would have been really nice. But it was his. I mean, all my comedy introduction, except for wrestling, comes from him, and so he would, you know, make me watch Saturday Night Live and all these, you know, all kinds of shows and stand up and stuff like that, and so. It was. I was home from college, and he's like, "You should really watch this. It's funny. It's very funny stuff." So, I can't remember coming home and sitting there watching with him a couple times, and that's what kind of brought it home for me, or it got me started anyway. But again, I was right at the right age to where you'd find 4 or 5 people sitting around a room and flip it on basic cable and be like, "Oh man!" So that whole span was just it was perfect timing for me.
I love how that's the story.
Sorry, my horror then wasn't to do with your answer. I just accidentally tripped up my wife while you were in the middle of that very touching story. I'm very sorry.
No problem.
That's how Zoom works. You can trip your wife and no one will know.
Yeah.
Except for Tim. If Tim does it, then everybody will know. It's amazing to me how often we hear that kind of story about the generational nature of MST. We heard from Jackie Jones, who was the young lady in Manos, The Hands of Fate yesterday. She told the story about her dad, who made that Manos film, was a big fan of Mystery Science Theater, fell asleep, was napping on the couch one day and woke up to see his film being riffed on the show. We have some work to do as parents to make sure that we pass this on to our children. Zach, are you working on that?
Yes, I am. I think last year when they debuted season 12, I posted on Twitter that my son wanted to know why everybody got a haircut. And he was calling it the Gomflet. It was fun. But what I really get a kick out of is if we're all sitting around and I'm like, all right, well, let's put a movie on or something like that. And they'll say, let's put on Mystery Science. And it always kind of like, you know, it always helps a little bit. You know, and it's never to like watch my parts. It's like, you know, let's just see what have we missed and all that stuff. So I don't know. Some of the we were watching Hobgoblins yesterday during the marathon, and it was like borderline too scary for my 6-year-old. But you know, I'm like, come on, you know, it's a funny show, and it's, you know, it's just stupid and blah blah blah. So
that is a stupid movie.
So Zach, what comedian or writer inspires you the most?
I mean, aside from Tim and Rebecca, I'd have to say Bob Odenkirk is probably my number one favorite. Like in terms of like, if I could have modeled a career after anybody's, in terms of like being the comedian writer package. I mean, obviously, I liked Belushi, I liked Farley, I liked heavyset guys that could scream and fall down because I feel like I am one. But you know, that's Bob Odenkirk is kind of the everyman who could do it all and really do a great job at it.
Awesome. Let's see. What is your favorite film? But then also your favorite comedy film. So just favorite film of all time, and then favorite comedy, unless they're the same.
Boy, I don't know. Wow. Putting you on the spot. You know, it's one of those things where it's like this is a movie adjacent podcast, and I should have thought about this more.
Oh no!
but you know what I mean?
Still
Like
thinking here.
back in the day when I used to like collect DVDs and VHS and stuff like that. I mean, there's movies I never threw away. But in terms of my all-time, I mean, like I'm a huge Star Wars fan. But would I count those among my favorite movies ever? I mean, my like I don't know. Maybe Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie. Maybe Caddyshack is my favorite movie. But that's a comedy, so I don't know if that's.
Hey, it can be. No one says your favorite movie can't be a comedy. I know mine are. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are movies that are made that people have no business remaking, in my opinion. And They Live is a fantastic movie that is so weird and out there. Honestly, the what I thought more about was like the movies that I would like to see ripped, because I get asked that question a lot. And I will say my stock answer is anything with the Barbarian twins in it. And those are the two guys that were in like DC Cab briefly, but then they had their own stretch of movies. But I'd also like to see some crazy big budget action have the pants ripped off at some point.
Well, the folks over at Riff Tracks,
Yes.
they continue to do some of those big budget ones and just tear them to shreds.
Absolutely. I just meant to get specifically to get the Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yes. Yeah. Crankcore is honking for the Barbarian twins, the honking Barbarian twins. Steve asks, I'll let you ask, Steve.
Okay, this was a question that I technically wrote for Rebecca, but since you're both here, tell me about Chicago. Tell me about how important Chicago is to you and to your comedy chop, Zach.
So here's a theory. I mean, it's a cornerstone, and it is a cornerstone of comedy. When I used to host shows at a place called Improv Olympic, which is a little more free form and Beck and I all worked at a place called Comedy Sports Chicago that specializes in short form games. But again, the reason I think I gelled so well with that is like Rebecca said, like I'm, a show where we pretend to be comedy athletes, forget it. That's right in my wheelhouse, because I'm going to be the yelly, runny, idiot.
But you're also so smart. You'll whip out these like highbrow references, and everyone's like, "Damn, yeah." So like you've got both ends of the spectrum. So stop it, but continue.
All right. So, and then there's another school of thought. It's called long form improvisation, where you get like a single suggestion, a role for a 40-minute show or a half-hour show. Both are different, and it's like a food or a drink or whatever. It's not everybody's cup of tea, one or the other. But I used to say when I would host at IO, everything you have laughed at or paid to laugh at in this world is in some way influenced by this building. And I believe that. And then as the circles go out, Second City and places like that are all really, if not only in Chicago, started in Chicago. So this is something I would love to pick Rebecca and Tim's brain about sometime. But like the pandemic closed IO, Second City. Comedy Sports is hanging on Twitch, and they run really fun shows on Twitch. If you guys ever have the time, it's a really fun interactive show. But there were something like 5,000 improv students in Chicago when the pandemic hit, and those people are all still hunkered down in their apartments. So the big training centers are just gone. And so I'm really wondering what's going to happen when people say it's safe to go back, because there's 5,000 people sitting out there working accounting jobs thinking, I can't wait for this to start back up because my big break is passing me by. But I mean, almost everybody came through Chicago in some measure. And there's a lot of big exceptions, especially when you talk about the Mystery Science Theater's, wheelhouse, right? There's a lot of big exceptions to that rule. But I mean, like, there's a lot of people that have come through Chicago just to study and do comedy, and they're still sitting there waiting for it to come back. And so I think they're going to open a school called Provworts, and the classes are going to be called Sorting Hats, and different schools, or there'll be pun-based names, and that's how people will train. But it'll take somebody with a little bit of money and a lot of patience.
Rebecca, it was technically your question. Can you tell us about Chicago and how pivotal it is to your existence in comedy?
I mean, I echo everything that Zach said about it. For me, gosh, what a loaded question. Yeah, I mean, it's the Mecca, and I was someone who I was good at some things, but not great at a lot of things, and the one thing that I was really good at was just making stuff up as I go, and I wasn't afraid to do it in front of people. And so this little theater speech major from a very small college in Iowa, once I, graduated, I was like, what do I do? And a lot of my professors were like, you should just go to Second City and learn how to do that. So I mostly went knowing about Second City, and then once I got there and learned about IO and the Annoyance, those are two other smaller schools, that just really helped. I don't know, you have the opportunity to learn and perform every single night of the week if you want to in Chicago. I mean, not now. But yeah, there are so many different schools of thought, ways that you learn things, and then you unlearn things from those other schools, and you figure out kind of what system works best for you. And yeah, I really liked having the flexibility of doing short form and long form because I really enjoyed both of them. All the different types of long form comedy, we're getting real nerdy here. Those are really fun to learn about, and for me, I think maybe for Zach and Tim as well.
Yeah, I don't mean to dive back in here, but I mean,
yeah, please do.
People you're talking to, I mean, I live, as you know, Steve, right outside of Chicago, and I probably would have figured it out one way or the other. But these two traveled to Chicago to live in Chicago just to study. And there's, there are thousands of people like that. They come from much further away than Tim and Rebecca had to, just to study it and learn it. And, to Rebecca's point about different types of long form, Tim and I are both involved in a show called the Improvised Shakespeare Company, where we just make up Shakespeare plays. And it is a ball. And, Rebecca will say I'm a smart performer, but I always feel like I'm running to catch the bus during that show because those guys are so, any fans of Patrick Stewart have probably seen him tweet about how good those shows are. And they're fantastic. Patrick Stewart has come and played that show, and it operates at such a level. And I don't stand out like the shitty guy, but man, I feel like I'm just running to hang on because they are so good at what they do. And so it's a, again, a different type of long form and a very niche, but
great.
Yeah,
and then there's a whole musical improv scene. I was part of a group called the Improvised Sondheim Project, where we would learn different Sondheim styles, and styles of songs, not even styles of musicals, but his song structure and stuff like that. And then we would take one suggestion from the audience and put on a 45 minute fully improvised Sondheim-esque musical. So, I learned a bunch of stuff that 7 people care about. And
we're right here.
right. But yeah, you get to, it's the other great thing about improv is, anything kind of this is why I loved, especially writing riffs for MST3K. Anything you can throw in there because someone else might catch on to it, or someone will be like, that's really funny, what is that? And they'll want to look into it. And improv, you take everything and everything you've experienced, and that's what you go on stage with. You don't have a script, but you've got everything right there, and you just pull from it, and you pull from other people, and you all create this crazy thing together that lasts like this, and then it's done forever.
I would think that statistically say you only use a certain percentage of your brain, but I feel like you at least double that when you're improvising because you're trying to hear and be heard, and then make references and get references, and be physical, and you're trying to just make this thing look like you're not making it up.
Yeah, and then just the other thing that's not necessarily Chicago specific, it's a little more improv specific. A friend of mine who I toured with for many years at Second City, we would often talk about how as people, we're pretty quiet and reserved and boring. But on stage, you can take, there's a real rush to improvising because you don't know what's going to happen. And it's either going to go terribly or it's going to be the most brilliant thing ever. And you learn to embrace both of those outcomes. And it's the safest, highest rush you're ever going to get. And you kind of keep chasing that rush of oh, I can feel this audience hating me so much, and I'm just going to make them hate me even more, which is why I love Cynthia Live, because she doesn't care if you hate her. She will thrive on that. Or I just made this reference that, just blew everyone's mind, or I just, I surprised myself with this character. So it's this really crazy rush that's not like a general performance rush. It is a like the improv rush is a little bit different. And I think that's, all of us are kind of chasing that when we're in that Chicago improv subculture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a kick beehive.
Yeah.
And right now it's closed, so I'm dying on the inside.
And I don't know, Tim, if you'd like to add on to that.
I do not.
Okay. All right.
Very well said by both of you, and thank you for your input, Tim. We could probably start wrapping it up unless there's some more questions for the folks who are in the Zoom with us here. If anybody else has questions, throw them out there. If you want me to unmute you, just let me know. I would like to say thank you so much, Zach, for doing this, for being a part of this event. Obviously, 2020 has been a very weird year for all of us, and the Turkey Day event that would normally happen at the Dino Hotel in Denver, which certainly would not have been anything like this, but I kind of feel like this is better because I've got more people have been able to be involved. Anyone with the internet can now talk with you guys, and that, I know for the fans, as certainly I speak for myself, that is one of the brightest things that has happened in 2020 is this cool little event that Greg kind of he started, and then he reached out to me during the summer. He's like, okay, how are we going to do Turkey Day this year? And then I just went and took off, coordinating all this stuff, putting it together. And I did not imagine the response. I could not have imagined the response that I've gotten from the cast and the crew, as well as the fans. And having Joel pop in yesterday was, that was something else. When I got the news, I fangirl died, came back, and then we had a great Q&A with him and Mary Jo yesterday. And just like this is, I think, really touching. I know I need it, and I think the rest of the world needs it too. So I thank you, Zach, for doing this, being a part of it. After we get off here, if you would maybe send me some of the links about the stuff you talked about, that would be very helpful. Hey, Chris, what's up?
Oh no, I'm just
playing. Oh, you're waving. Oh, see, I'm learning. I'm learning how these little emojis.
This has been great.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, well, thanks to everybody, and thanks for reaching out and asking me. I was flattered to be asked and flattered to be included. Again, I feel like I'm just on the very edges, and happy to be. I mean, again, it's all been a dream come true. So I'm happy to talk about it to anybody who I'm trying to say.
Well, maybe we can do this again next weekend. Maybe Christmas, because we're all still going to be hopefully stuck at home during Christmas, staying safe.
And of course, thanks to Tim and Rebecca, without whom none of this would be possible, up to and including as entertaining as this last 45 minutes was.
As we were watching season 11 yesterday, sorry, just really quick, because honestly, for me, it's weird to watch the seasons that we did. It's hard to not be critical of, like, just what you do. But as we were watching it, I forgot how crazy funny it was for you two. Every time you loaded each, you would come up with different physical bits, and no one told you two to do that. Like Rob nor Joel, I don't think ever said that. But these two, being who they are and being the amazing improvisers they are, they're never going to pull focus because they're polite people, but my God, they're going to enhance it more than you think. And so I don't know how many times we had to do different takes of, different, because those were tricky for you to handle because it was heavy.
They were unwieldy.
Yeah. And then the thing kept moving. Yeah. And no one gave us we didn't block anything beforehand. So the three of us had no idea, this wasn't all in the script either, if I remember correctly. So we were like, what does this mean? What are we doing? And where do you want us? And where are the cameras? And what can we see? So these two just came up with all these great physical bits of how to load. I can't remember the name of the actual apparatus.
It's containment unit, right?
Containment unit.
Yeah, the containment. Okay. I wasn't sure if it was another Joel name that I forgot.
Right. I think my favorite one was Tim. We're getting under this is the heaviest thing in the world, and then we get over there and it's real high up, and Tim just takes it and puts it in.
Yeah.
It was so
we
fun.
were mostly just entertaining ourselves. And if
Exactly.
other people happen to enjoy it. So
And
much the better.
it was so great. Like I know Patton caught a little bit of it too, and he he didn't want to break, because I remember he's professional, not wanting to like break during things. But I think he even said during bits like the physical comedy happening back here is ridiculous.
I think he said,
So
please get
so
the away from me.
I had forgotten about all of that until we were watching. I think Carnival Magic was probably the first one yesterday from that season. It was like, oh man, yeah, I wish there was just like footage of Zach and Tim coming up with the bits and loading that, because it was great.
Well, I mean, thank you. But also, I love watching for that too. But it's the same thing as the rest of the show. Like, if you watch it over and over again, you notice everything is so rich and everything is so deep. And, again, even the backgrounds that look like blue screen because they're so well lit. But if you look back in there, it's the detail that's just loaded in, the wall. It's so fun.
So sorry, you were wrapping it up, and I was like, let's talk about this. So
It's the Minnesota goodbye. We have been doing it so far all weekend. Mary Jo accused me, or not accused me. She said I must have been from Minnesota because I kept thanking her when I didn't need to, but that's just how I am. So we will sign off from here for now. Thank you again, Zach. Thank you guys who all tuned in, asked questions, all that fun stuff, and then take a little break, get some water, and then we'll be back with Tim and Rebecca in an hour and 10 minutes. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.